Okay, so you want to own a casino. Buy a building, put in some slot machines, a few blackjack tables, and just wait. The house always wins, right? That's the whole business model. People walk in, they gamble, mathematically they lose, you collect the difference. It sounds like the closest thing to a guaranteed money printer that legally exists. And here's the strange part. That's not entirely wrong. The math genuinely is in your favor on almost every single game on the floor. And yet casinos go bankrupt constantly, sometimes within 2 years of opening, sometimes while sitting on some of the most expensive real estate in the world. Understanding why the house can be mathematically guaranteed to win and still lose the entire business is what this is actually about. Let's start with what it costs to open the doors. A small physical casino. Think a modest regional operation with a few dozen slot machines and a handful of tables. Can be built for somewhere between $2 million and $5 million. A mid-sized casino with more games and a real gaming floor runs $10 million to $20 million. But the casino most people picture, the Las Vegas-style resort with thousands of rooms, isn't in that category at all. A 4-story casino resort typically costs between $100 million and $250 million to build. Go bigger. 5 or more stories, full amenities, convention space, luxury suites, and construction alone runs $250 million to $1.5 billion. And that's before you've bought a single card table. Hotel rooms inside a casino resort aren't built like normal hotel rooms. A standard room costs between $150,000 and $500,000 to construct. Once you count the marble bathrooms, the soundproofing, the climate systems built to run non-stop, and the high-end furnishings guests expect, multiply that by a few thousand rooms, and you understand why the biggest Las Vegas properties have construction bills north of $2 billion. When Las Vegas cost $2.7 billion to build, it was, for a while, the most expensive hotel casino ever constructed. Then there's the gaming floor itself. A single slot machine costs $20,000 to $35,000. A casino floor built for serious volume, thousands of machines plus dozens of table games, can require $15 million just in gaming equipment before a single chip has been sold. Add security systems, surveillance networks watching every inch of the floor, cash handling infrastructure, and the specialized software that tracks every bet in real time. And you're deep into 8 figures before opening night. And then comes the part most people never think about, the license. Getting permission to legally operate a casino is not like getting a business permit. In Las Vegas, the average licensing cost alone runs around $770,000. And that's just a fee. Behind that fee sits a background investigation into every investor, every executive, every source of funding, sometimes taking years. Jurisdictions treat casino licensing the way they treat vetting a bank, because in a lot of ways, that's exactly what a casino is. So add it all up: land, construction, gaming equipment, furnishings, licensing, and the working capital reserve you need before a single guest checks in. And even a modest casino resort commonly requires a total capital outlay of $37 million to build out. And that number climbs into the billions fast once you're talking about anything on the strip. Financial models built for casino resort launches routinely show a required cash buffer of $300 million or more, just to absorb the operating losses of the first year while the property finds its footing. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because once the doors open, the math genuinely is in your favor. Every single game on a casino floor is designed with a built-in mathematical edge for the house. This isn't cheating, it's public information, printed in gaming regulations, verifiable by anyone. Roulette gives the house an edge of roughly 5.26% on American wheels because of the 2 green zeros that don't pay out on color bets. Blackjack, played with basic strategy, can be as low as 0.5% in the house in favor, but most players don't play basic strategy, so the real-world edge the casino experiences is closer to 2%. Slot machines are engineered to keep between roughly 5% and 15% of everything wagered, depending on the machine and jurisdiction, a number the industry calls the hold. Every dollar that goes into a slot machine is not gambled once. It's gambled dozens of times as the same money cycles through spin after spin, which means that small percentage compounds fast. This is why the industry has a saying, the house doesn't need luck, it needs volume. Run the games long enough, across enough bets, and the law of large numbers guarantees the casino comes out ahead. A single gambler can win big on a single night. The casino, running thousands of hands and spins simultaneously across an entire floor, cannot lose over any meaningful stretch of time. It is, mathematically, one of the closest things to a guaranteed business model that exists. So if the math is guaranteed, why do casinos fail constantly? Because the games were never the actual business. The games are the engine room. Everything else, the part almost nobody accounts for correctly when they picture owning a casino, is what actually determines whether the business survives. Start with the single biggest expense line that has nothing to do with gambling at all. Comps. Short for complimentary, free rooms, free meals, free drinks, free show tickets, sometimes free flights, all given away to keep high-value gamblers on the property and coming back. This isn't generosity. It's precisely calculated math. Every casino tracks what's called a player's theoretical win, an estimate based on how much someone bets, how long they play, and the house edge on their game of how much the casino statistically expects to earn from that specific person over their visit. A high roller with a theoretical win of $10,000 for a weekend might receive a free suite worth $2,000, free dining worth $500, and a private jet pickup, because giving away 25% of the expected win to guarantee the other 75% actually shows up is a rational trade. The entire loyalty card system you swipe at a slot machine exists to feed this calculation, tracking every dollar wagered so the casino always knows exactly how much comp value a given guest has earned. The problem is when the math gets it wrong. A whale, industry slang for an ultra-high stakes gambler, can be flown in, housed in a $20,000 a night suite, given free everything, and then simply get lucky. Casinos have lost tens of millions of dollars in a single weekend to a whale who beat the math on a short enough timeline that the law of large numbers hadn't caught up yet. The house edge guarantees long-run outcomes. It says nothing about any single weekend. Then there's labor, and casinos are staggeringly labor-intensive. Unlike a factory that can run lean with automation, a casino floor needs dealers at every table, pit bosses supervising them, cashiers in the cage, security roaming the floor around the clock, surveillance staff watching hundreds of camera feeds in a windowless room 24 hours a day, and an entire hospitality operation running the hotel, restaurants, and entertainment on top of it. A major resort casino can employ thousands of people, and because the floor never closes, none of them work a schedule that lets the business scale down during quiet hours. The lights, the air conditioning, the security cameras, the surveillance room, all of it runs at full capacity at 4 a.m. on a Tuesday exactly as it does on a Saturday night, whether there are 5 gamblers on the floor or 5,000. Utilities alone are enormous. A casino resort's climate control has to run continuously across a building the size of several city blocks, because you never want a gambler to feel tired, cold, or eager to leave. The entire environment is engineered to keep people comfortable and disoriented from time indefinitely, which means the HVAC bill never sleeps either. Then there's regulatory compliance, which in this industry is unlike almost anything else. Casinos are one of the most heavily monitored businesses that exist because they sit at the intersection of enormous cash flows and organized crime risk. Anti-money laundering compliance alone requires dedicated staff tracking every large transaction, filing currency transaction reports, and maintaining audit trails a bank would recognize. Miss a filing, and the fines aren't symbolic. Regulators can suspend a license entirely, which for a casino means the entire multi-hundred-million-dollar building generates zero revenue overnight. And this is where the real trap sits, the one that has swallowed some of the most expensive casino projects ever built. Take Revel Casino in Atlantic City. Revel wasn't a budget operation cutting corners. It was a $2.4 billion resort, the tallest building on the New Jersey shore, built to be a Las Vegas-style luxury playground for Wall Street money, opening in 2012 with Beyoncé headlining the launch. On paper, everything about it screams success: prime beachfront location, luxury branding, backed by serious capital. It closed 2 years later. It never turned a profit in its entire existence. What went wrong wasn't the games. The house edge worked exactly as designed on every table. What went wrong was everything around the games. Revel made the decision to go completely non-smoking, alienating a huge share of Atlantic City's traditional gambling demographic. It priced its hotel rooms and restaurants for high-end Wall Street clientele in a market that actually ran on day-trip bus tours and budget travelers. The building itself was designed with a confusing layout. Guests entering from the boardwalk had to ride a disorienting escalator up 4 flights just to reach the casino floor, then navigate a circular layout instead of the simple, legible design every competing casino used. And a massive, custom-built power plant meant to eventually serve future development around the property never found buyers, turning into a permanent drain instead of a revenue source. Revel had listed $1.52 billion in debt against $1.1 billion in assets by the time it filed for bankruptcy twice. It sold at auction for $110 million, roughly 5% of what it cost to build. The house edge was never the problem. The building around the house edge was. This is the pattern across the industry. Casinos rarely die from bad odds. They die from fixed costs, debt service, payroll, utilities, compliance, that don't care whether the games are profitable that month, combined with a location or concept mismatch that keeps the floor emptier than the business plan assumed. Now let's talk about how the money that does come in actually gets split. Because gaming revenue is only one piece of a modern casino's income. In a large resort casino, gaming, the actual slots and tables, often accounts for less than half of total revenue. The rest comes from rooms, restaurants, retail, nightclubs, and entertainment. This is deliberate. A guest who loses $200 at blackjack but also spends $150 on dinner, $80 on a show ticket, and $300 on a hotel room is worth far more to the property than gaming revenue alone suggests. And unlike gaming revenue, which is capped by the mathematical house edge and how long someone plays, hospitality revenue has no such ceiling. This is why the modern mega resort model, Wynn, the Venetian, MGM Grand, devotes enormous square footage to shopping, dining, and shows. The casino floor gets people in the building. Everything else is where the margins genuinely stack. But this diversification is also expensive to build and expensive to run, which brings us back to the fixed cost trap. A casino with a smaller, purely gaming-focused footprint has lower construction costs and lower ongoing overhead, but it's also entirely dependent on the house edge working exactly as the math predicts, with no hospitality revenue to smooth out a bad month. A full resort has more revenue streams, but also carries a much heavier fixed cost structure that has to be covered every single day regardless of how the tables perform. So here's the honest version of the two scenarios. The optimistic case. You've built or bought into a well-located casino, Las Vegas Strip, a major regional gaming market, or one of the limited licensed jurisdictions where competition is capped by law. Occupancy stays strong. The comp program is calibrated correctly so you're not overpaying to keep gamblers on property, and hospitality revenue from rooms, dining, and shows is carrying real weight alongside gaming income. In this world, the house edge does exactly what the math says it should over a large enough volume of play, and the fixed costs, labor, utilities, compliance, debt service, are comfortably covered by a floor that's full most nights. This is the version of the business that has made casino operators some of the wealthiest people in American business history. The realistic case. A competitor opens 2 miles away, splitting the same local gambler base the way gas stations split traffic when a rival opens across the street. A regional economic downturn quietly reduces discretionary gambling spend. Your comp program, calibrated during boom years, is now overpaying relative to actual player value. A regulatory compliance failure, even a paperwork issue, triggers a costly investigation. Debt service on construction financing, locked in years earlier, doesn't move regardless of how the floor is performing this month. Under those conditions, a property that looked like a guaranteed math machine on paper can post losses for years, the way Revel did for its entire existence, right up until the bankruptcy filing. The difference between those two outcomes was never about whether the roulette wheel was rigged in the house's favor. It always was. The difference was whether everything built around that mathematical edge, the location, the debt, the concept, the fixed costs that run whether or not a single chip crosses the table, was built to survive long enough for that edge to actually compound. So if you do decide to own a casino, understand what you're actually buying. You're not buying a guaranteed money machine. You're buying a mathematical certainty wrapped inside one of the most capital-intensive, fixed-cost-heavy, regulation-saturated buildings in the entire economy. And the house only wins if the building around the house survives long enough for the math to do its work.